Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Katie Richardson, and she is with Pudge. Welcome, Katie. How are you?
Doing amazing. Gary, I'm super excited to be here.
So, Katie, tell us, before you started your business, kind of what was your background? What got you there before you started your own business?
Yeah. People are really surprised to learn that I ended up building a multi-million-dollar international company, but I didn't have any background in business. But what I did study, Gary, was design. And design is about problem solving. It's about understanding complex systems, and it's about creating a solution and kind of reverse engineering for the outcome that you want. And so, I started building a company and it really took off because I think my thinking was very different. So when it came to building the brand, creating the product, even building out international distribution, and I should say we, because me and my husband built this company. We just approached it really differently than maybe most people. And it turns out when you can separate yourself from the competition, and that's one way to do it, right? Is you just think differently. When you think differently than your competition, then you literally are separate from them. And we got a really incredible outcome and result. And within 12 months, we were in 2,000 stores in the US and distribution in 26 different countries. And our first year was, we were featured on the Ellen Show, the Rachel Ray Show, the Today Show, on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. And so, while we were also having 4 kids. And because of everything that I kind of had to learn from the School of Hard Knocks when it comes to business, running teams, getting press and attention and distribution all over the world, all the things that I learned in that 8+ years before we exited the company in 2017, they really set me up to now be doing what I do today, which is I coach high-performing entrepreneurs, people who are also building a fairly complex system and care about their marriage, care about their relationship with their kids, have health and wellness and feel grounded spiritually. And that's a complex system. And so I take I had to develop my own framework to be able to navigate all of that complexity with, my feet on the ground and my head on straight. And I feel really fortunate that the design thinking is what allowed me to create frameworks. And then within those frameworks, I have systems that helped me navigate it in a way that I've been able to build an incredible life. And, ultimately my objective, Gary, and this might sound kind of wild and crazy, is early on, I had experiences where I realized that if I continue on this path, I'm really going to regret the life that I've been building. And that's not okay with me. And so I had to figure out how to maintain all of the variables, right? The business, the marriage, the kids, the physical wellness, the spirituality. How do I, is there a way in which I can arrange or align all of these variables where they complement one another? And so I went, it took me multiple years to really figure this out. But the visual that I often share with people is in that moment where I was kind of having that existential crisis and I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep building this business. In that moment, it felt like, here's Katie standing with her bow and arrow and just scattered targets all over the place, right? And anytime I'm focused on a target, that means I have my back to another one. And so it just really felt like I was always in this double bind. If I'm at home, well, I should be at work leading my team. And if I'm at New York on a sales meeting, well, I should be home at my son's soccer game. And so it always felt like I was never where I should be. And so ultimately what I ended up building was systems that aligned all of those targets. So there's Katie with her bow and arrow, or you with your bow and arrow. All of your targets are lined up in front of you. And they're not scattered everywhere. You're not being pulled in 1,000 different directions. You're not feeling spread thin. And instead, it's fun. It's exciting. it's liberating, and it's meaningful work. So that's kind of the sense for how I got here and why I'm doing what I do today.
I mean, how do you get the business owner to buy into that? Because many business owners are scattered. We're everywhere. We got 8
Sure.
million irons in the fire and everything else that's going on. You get them to kind of redirect what they're doing
Yeah.
to be able to get this alignment or this integration.
It's kind of unfortunate, Gary, but they need to be in a lot of pain.
Right.
And one of those systems is starting to show signs of failing, whether that is their health, their marriage, or the business, or spirituality. I have a client who's building $1 billion business, and he's like really disoriented spiritually. And he was like, this is terrifying me. And it's starting to bleed into all of those other systems. When someone comes to me, as business owners, we're disciplined, we're hard workers, and have a very high tolerance for pain. And so it takes a significant amount of pain for a business owner to say, okay, I give. Like, I have tried everything. And oftentimes that's what it is. They have tried everything. They've hired a CMO, they've hired a new CFO. It's usually a host of things, and nothing's really moving the needle. And what really terrifies them is, the hard work and discipline that they've always used to get ahead isn't getting them ahead anymore. One of my clients who's been working with me for almost 3 years, when I met him, he was working 120 hours a week. I didn't even know that was possible. And he was still kind of optimistic. I said, what's your plan? What are you going to do? And he was like, I'm just going to keep going until I figure this out. And I meet these men and women, and it makes me so sad, because that high tolerance for pain and discomfort is actually starting to be destructive towards them. It doesn't take them long to talk to me and hear my story. And they're like, oh, this is really different what she's saying. And I haven't tried that. And I see this host of individuals who have used her systems and processes and are actively getting results. And they start to wonder, I wonder if it might work for me. But their moment of pain sounds like this, and it's really vague, and it's, something needs to change. And that's all they know.
Right.
Like,
Right.
beyond that, it's not very defined.
My business is different. My life is different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you kind of combat that side of things? Because again, I hear it all the time myself.
Well, they're not totally wrong, because ultimately what they're saying is, my business, my family, my values, that combination is unlike anybody I see. And in that sense, they are right. And I felt the same way when I kind of reached that moment where I thought, this business is taking off like a rocket and it's not sustainable. In that moment, I too wanted something that was really unique. And I couldn't find examples of people who had figured out that very specific set of circumstances and values, either in, autobiographies or magazine articles. And in fact, I'd seen a lot of evidence of the opposite, that to continue to build my business in that way was ultimately going to be the end of my marriage or not having a relationship with my kids. And so what you want as a business owner actually is quite unique. And so what I do is I show people kind of the custom system. And it's, together we will create the system that actually makes the business and life that you uniquely want possible. And so I have a framework that I show people that helps them create their unique system within that framework. Because I agree, you are unique. Are there variables that are foundational that are similar to everybody else? Yes. And that's how this system works. It works on that core foundational level. And because of that, it's effective.
How have you run up against, obviously you have a proven track record. I mean, you built a multi-million-dollar global business and have sold it. And then you're doing what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that you have many people that are still going to push back on that. But I guess, what is the mindset shift that you try to have these business owners make to see that they can succeed in this?
Yes. Great question. Everybody who I talk to who's kind of at a loss, something needs to change, but everything I'm trying isn't working. what they're doing is they're looking externally for the obstacle, right? It's, not the right CFO or not the right marketing strategy. And some of that might actually even be true.
Right.
But if you really want to move the needle in your business, you need to look in a different direction. And it's a direction that we're so blind to, and then we're actively avoiding it. And you need to look internal. When my boys were young, I have 3 boys that are 2 years apart, and, wrestling and fighting would happen every now and then. And when they would come to me upset about something, they would be pointing the finger at each other. He did this. No, he did this. And I would always tell them, it takes 2 to tango. And the same is true here. And when we can take ownership that I'm at the top of this organization, if my team is not aligned, there is a way in which I, as the owner, as the leader, as the visionary, that I'm contributing to it. I have an incredible surgeon who's a client of mine, and he similarly, high tolerance of pain. He was just kind of putting up with it all. And we had a conversation. He was like, whoa, I need your help. And I said, where? And he was like, all of it, all of it. It's like marketing, team, operator. And he was like, I want the whole package. And so it took him a while, Gary. And I would tell him this every one of our calls, because he would say, I'm having a problem with this employee and this person and this individual. And he just wanted to point the finger. And it's not like he's just an egotistical jerk, not at all. It's human nature to not look internal. It's too scary. It's too uncomfortable. And so for like the first few weeks, I kept having to remind him. I was like, okay, doctor, where are they getting this from?
Right.
Like my team, they're so ungrateful. They're so entitled. And I said, that's probably true. I just need to fire them all and start over. I was like, if you do that, the same thing will happen. And you'll be telling me in 3 months, I got the same problem.
Yep.
And he was like, Katie, I'm so generous. And I said, tell me more. Well, I give them these bonuses. At the end of the year, Christmas, it's like a across the board profit share. I was like, there you go. Nobody's compensation is tied to their contribution. So they're all just sitting back and they're saying, well, I'm just going to wait till Christmas because the generous doctor is going to write me a significant check. Right. I was like, you're creating that. And he was like, what? So when we look at ourselves, it's actually the highest leveraged way that you can build your business, because not only are you the obstacle, you're the solution. And, we think that we can kind of control externally what's happening outside of us. And there is a way in which you have influence. But if you're trying to control the circumstances outside of you, we utilize, and this, like, people are so blind to it because we're trying to, but to do that, you have to literally utilize force and manipulation. And nobody wants to be forced to do something. Nobody appreciates being manipulated. And so as an owner who, by the way, is seeking to be an individual of integrity and goodness and trying to put real value into the world, when you're utilizing those tools, there's a part of you that knows it and hates it. And so you're like trying to push the team to do things, but at the same time, you don't want to force them to do things. And you're trapped in this double bind and you can't see the way forward. And so when you understand that you are the solution, you are the way, and when you make changes within yourself, it's paradoxical and it's not obvious and it doesn't always make sense. And it's like, well, how are you contributing to that? Well, like, right. Why am I the one who always has to change? Can't these people change? Can't they just do their work? Can't they just get crap done? That's what they say to me. And I'm like, yes. And you need to empower them. I am empowering them. Actually, no, you're not. Let me show you. And so we understand these core principles. We read business books. We watch, professionals, experts on YouTube, or we buy courses and programs, and we think that we're leading our team, but we're actively disempowering our team. Mm-hmm. And we are actively preventing them from doing the work. And so what happens is the owner becomes the bottleneck because nobody's performing at the level that they need them to. And it's infuriating.
I agree with you 100%.
And it's all preventable, Gary. It's all preventable.
What, from the standpoint of, again, being most of the time, the business owner is the bottleneck because, again, it's their baby, maybe pretty, maybe ugly, who knows? But again, like we talked about before, many business owners start out as very good operators, tacticians, whatever their trade is, and then now they're a business owner. So
Yeah.
they're used to doing everything themselves.
Yes.
So like you're
Yeah.
saying, oh, I need to hire somebody, I need to empower somebody. I think lots of times business owners' thought process is like, okay, if I just work a little bit harder,
Yeah.
then I'm
Yeah.
going to get to that point where
Yeah.
the skies are going to open and everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
How do you help them combat that? Because as we
Yeah.
all know, we can keep working harder. I mean, you talked
Yeah.
about your person who's working 100 and some hours a week.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
just because there's activity doesn't mean that you're working hard or smart.
Right. Well, maybe that's true for my 7-year-old, but when you're a business owner, that's actually probably at that point a destructive thought. So the first thing I want to point out is, what got you here won't get you there, meaning to the next level that you want. And what got you here is what I would call an operating system. And it's a set of rules and beliefs and understandings that you utilize to make decisions. And it got you ahead in high school, it got you ahead in college, and it even helped you build and create an incredible business. But that operating system is now blinding you to what will take you to the next level. So the first thing I do is I help somebody recreate their operating system, and we create what I call a powerful operating system. And it is this perpetual growth system that allows you to actively start to see your own blind spots and then to immediately create clarity on what it is that you need to do. So the first thing that an entrepreneur needs to do is they need to level up their operating system, step out of the old operating system, which blinds you and is holding you back, and create a new powerful operating system. When we do this, Gary, it's like literally putting on a new pair of glasses. I mean, we've all had that experience, whether it's being blinded by the sun or not having our prescription on. You put on a new pair of glasses and all of a sudden, I mean, I'm wearing glasses right now. I just put some on that are yellow lenses, right? And so everything that I'm looking at now has like this gold tinge to it, which is like, I didn't see that before. And so this new powerful operating system literally changes what you're seeing, because that's part of the problem is we're blind to the obstacles. And then the second is it okay if I just share my framework that I teach people? I'm happy to share that really quick.
Yes, yes.
Because that's the second piece. You need this shift in perspective. And then the second piece is you need the vital framework. And there's 5 systems within the vital framework. The first is you need a vision system. If you and I were in Africa on, trying to find elephants and lions, we would start walking in circles because it's really flat. And that's because one foot is more dominant than the other. But what pulls you out of the walking in circles is you need a point on the horizon that you're fixed on. And the same is true for a business owner. At this point, you're walking in circles and you're hoping something's going to change. But what you need is a very clear point on the horizon that you and your team are aligned around. So that's the first thing. You need the vision system. The second is you need the inspire system, because you have a specific set of values. And that means that the path to getting to that point on the horizon won't be the same as the path for somebody else. You brought up the fact that each business owner says, well, yeah, but my business is different or my situation is different. And they're not wrong. You need an inspired plan for how to get to that point on the horizon that aligns for you and your unique values, your unique desires. Okay, so VI. T is you need the team system. This is where I show entrepreneurs how you're actively disempowering your team and kind of the dysfunction that creates on the team. And people see it in their business partnership. They see it with their frustration with the team because they're, either literally or figuratively knocking on their door saying, here's another problem. And they toss it in and then they shut the door. And here's another problem. And that's when the business owner becomes the bottleneck. So you need to understand how to empower your team, how to align your team and like really inspire them. Mm-hmm. And then this is that internal piece, the align system. You are pulled in so many different directions. That visual that I created, you standing there with the bow and arrow with targets or goals all over the place. We think we can hide that that's how we feel inside, but we can't. So when you're frantic, when you're scattered internally, you're going to take frantic, scattered action. You will get frantic, scattered outcomes. We have to create alignment within you first. When you have that internal alignment, and specifically that means your thoughts are lining up with your feelings, which are lining up with your inspiration or your gut, your intuition, and then your actions. When those things all line up, you become unstoppable. Nobody can touch you. You are operating at a level that almost nobody in the world operates at. The Bible and Abraham Lincoln has said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And so many entrepreneurs are divided against themselves internally. You need to do the work. And then the last piece is the lead system, right? Leading was not intuitive for me. It just was not in my nature. I'm super independent. And so I can go do the thing. But
Right.
to lead somebody else to do the thing at a similar level that I'm capable of was not natural for me. And I had to learn how to lead. And it was a process of understanding this alignment piece, understanding this empowerment piece, and how can I empower individuals? I first had to learn this with my kids. I didn't want to be a totalitarian mother. I actually, we are all born wanting freedom. We've all heard a 3-year-old say, "Me do it," right? They
Right.
want that freedom. And so I wanted my kids to have that freedom within boundaries at that age, but I wanted to actually fuel the flame of freedom that they wanted. And as a business owner, you want freedom, and your team wants freedom too. They have unique gifts and talents and abilities and perspectives that you as the business owner don't have. How can we tap into their unique perspective and actually benefit from it? And how can you really create an environment where they feel encouraged, liberated, free to try and test things, to innovate, maybe even fail, but in so doing, pick up the stick of responsibility within their position and then stop not trusting themselves, stop bringing all of the problems and issues to you. So how can we really empower your team? And that's the lead system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the vital framework.
Yeah, I think lots of times too, when um as business owners, when we hire somebody, lots of times too, we're just trying to get a body in the door and get started. And a lot of people don't understand that it's like, okay, you truly do need to hire the right person. In the fact that, is it somebody that you can empower to do something? Is it the right person for you? Lots of times the big corporations and stuff like that, they'll do the different testing and stuff like that when they hire somebody. But as a small business owner, lots of times we don't do that. And then we end
Right.
up hiring somebody that we're constantly doing that with, that again falls back on us as the
Yeah.
business owner for not handling right.
We're optimists and we see their potential, but we don't actually have the tools to either pull that out, or maybe they actually weren't the right fit.
Right, right. I mean, you
Yeah.
were talking earlier about the doctor and how he gives them compensation and stuff like that at the end of the year. And it's like, that's it. But those
Yes.
people may need that constant pat on the back. Oh, you're doing a good job and stuff like that, which is a different reward mechanism,
It is.
reward system. And that's something that I've learned over time, because it's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like, I'm like, okay, it's time to work. Let's get to work type thing. And, everybody gets compensated, so forth, so on.
Yeah.
But sometimes you forget that there's people that really need that constant pat on the back or praise. And that's their reward
Yes.
system, not finance.
You're pointing something out, Gary, which is the other thing I have to tell my CEOs when they first start working with me is, that nature is to project ourselves onto the individual, say, what would I do in that position? And this surgeon is highly self-motivated. And so
Right.
for him to be in that position and someone giving him a generous check, he wouldn't become entitled. But to realize, as somebody who has shouldered as much responsibility and risk as you do as a business owner, you are not like most people, and your perspective and your motivations are radically different from your team. And that's not to say that your team are not, worthy or valuable individuals they are. It's just our motivations are very different. And so you need to understand your team members. You need to understand their motivations, what excites them, what lights them up, where does their attention naturally flow to? And so how can you direct their nature within the framework of your mission and your strategy for executing on this mission? That's the key. And that's also part of the alignment piece. And so it's creating alignment within self, understanding what motivates the other, and then setting them up within your business structure in a way that it does set them free to do what they naturally already want to do.
How do
But yeah, we think different as business
yeah,
owners.
definitely. How do you coach these business owners to find that out? Because that's not always easy to find
No,
out.
no.
And I think lots of times business owners are so afraid to ask these questions of their people that are on their team
Yeah,
because they're afraid they may ask it wrong. It may belittle somebody, or they
yeah,
feel it's crossing line or whatever. How do you coach them to get that information
yeah.
in a way that they feel comfortable?
Couple different things. The first is you have to actually, the power of two, when we're having conversations with people, we're super guarded
Mhm.
and we're actually trying to lead the conversation in a really specific way. And that's manipulation, by the way. And so you have that's probably a pattern that you have developed as a business owner. It's a protective mechanism that almost everybody does. Can you set that down, show up almost like a 5-year-old who's like, tell me more. Why are you doing that? Not as a way of casting judgment, not as a way to point the finger and blame and guilt and shame somebody. It's just like a scientist who's just trying to uncover the truth.
Mhm.
And most of us are born with this. Well, we're all born with that ability to be curious and not attach judgment and shame and meaning to things. We develop that. So part of what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking them back and remembering what it's like to be that 5-year-old and, calming your nervous system down, setting down your fears for the time being. And I have systems and visuals that I walk them through that show them how to do this. But being able to actually ask curiosity-based questions without this fear of being penalized by your team member. And if you can develop this skill, and it's a skill, and I can show everybody how to do this. If you can develop this skill, you will have a level of trust, honesty, camaraderie, connection, just transparency with your team that you've been wanting, you haven't been able to facilitate or create. Some of my clients actually ask me, will you hop on the phone with my business partner or my leadership team? And, if it's part of our deal, I'll do that. And I had a client who he's out of New York. He's got a mortgage company, a consulting company, and he was having issues with his business partner for 18 months. They could not come to an agreement on the role and responsibility of the business partner. And so they were just kicking the can down the road. I asked my client, how's this affecting you? And he was like, Katie, I think about it every night as I'm trying to fall asleep. When I wake up in the morning, it's still there on my mind for 18 months. The partner told me that I'm 45. I look and feel like I'm 65. Like it was aging him.
Right.
Because they care about each other, Gary, like they're friends. And so they couldn't come to this agreement. They couldn't align, but they care about each other. They love each other and they want to stay friends. And so much was just going unsaid. And I walked them through these models. I showed them how to do this. And within 3 weeks, they mutually agreed to his role, but yet they couldn't do it previously. And you just need to learn these processes and it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so much of it has to do with what all of us need to do this is to be able to like you said, once the systems are in place, is trust the systems and let them work. So then that way it does, free us up. And I can see how that can help other things come more into alignment, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, I could sit here and talk hours on this. This is good stuff. What have I not asked you wish I had?
maybe around failure.
That happens every day.
When people talk to me, they make this assumption that I just got it all right out of the gate and I didn't have any failures. And that could not be further from the truth. I failed a lot, especially in the beginning. I still fail. And so, yeah, I would just say that while we've talked about Katie's highlight reel, I'm an extremely flawed individual. You know, I've got 4 kids. I've been married for 22 years. We live in Puerto Rico. I feel so fortunate to do the work that I'm doing. And I feel like my secret weapon has been God and prayer. I was willing to look for answers, maybe in places that not everybody looks. And I was desperate enough that I would kind of implement what God was inspiring me to do. And so turning to scripture, turning to prayer, having the audacity to take the action that I was feeling inspired to take, even though logically it didn't connect, it didn't necessarily make sense. I couldn't explain why. I just started to develop a trust with my intuition. And it's been the greatest blessing and kind of the secret weapon to my success.
I think many times people, you're talking about failure, and it's just like, well, but what about all the lessons that you learned because of things not going right? That's what I kind of try to always look at when I fail or when something doesn't work right. That's a lesson learned. So now I have a new opportunity to do it again with more information that I didn't have before. So I think that that's, again, going back to changing that mindset and things like that for sure. Katie, if people like what they hear and they want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about you and your systems and stuff like that, how can they do that?
I have a podcast. You can go listen to the first 8 episodes that tells a little bit more of my story. The podcast is called What's Working Now. I talked about working at foundational principles, first principles. And this show in particular, I'm curious, what is the foundational principle to each person I'm interviewing? Kind of what's that foundational principle? And then the now component is principles are always true. It's the application that shifts and changes. And so what's the principle? What's the application of that principle right now today? That's what I'm always curious about. I'm also active on Instagram, katie.live. Send me a DM. I actually personally manage my social account. If you want to see more kind of what people have been able to do with my systems, you can go to now.katierichardsson.com/case study, singular. There's, lots of different cases. There's the hard money lender. There is the franchise owner. There is the influencer. There is the busy parent. Like I've got a whole range of individuals who are benefiting from this framework and really understanding how to implement the systems. Go look at those case studies. If you feel like, wow, I need your help,
right?
You can click the button and fill out an application, and that'll allow you to set up a call with me.
Great. I really appreciate your time today. Appreciate your wisdom. I think that, this gives, the business owners something to think about and to understand that there is somebody that's out there that can help them. You've done it yourself. I mean, you built a multi-million-dollar business, global business, and then now you're doing this. And I think that that's proof that it can be done for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. Awesome. It was great to talk to you, Gary. I really appreciate the conversation.
Sure. Thank you. Our guest was Katie Richardson, and I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.